are lots of things. I mean, the COVID vaccines is a huge success.
Sorry, we must clear that up. That's not true. That is not true. It's been proven over and over again that actually we could have had the vaccines. The problem is we did not have the data. The EU were holding back for 2 weeks because they said that the data was not up to standard. And Boris Johnson ignored that and went ahead. It had nothing to do.
It was saved millions of lives.
God. Yes, thank God, because actually, what if the data was wrong?
So you've just seen it. 10 years on from the Brexit vote, somebody's asked to name a benefit, and the first one out of the gate gets taken apart in about 10 seconds flat. And here's what makes this worth watching. These aren't callers in over their heads. They're confident, polished, pro-Brexit voices who've defended this for a decade. Ask the simplest question there is. Name one concrete benefit, just one. Watch what happens. Because it's not that they say the wrong thing, it's what the whole exchange quietly reveals about an argument that's had 10 years to find its evidence and still can't. Let's watch together. And tell me where you're watching from in the comments.
It's a lie, Ellen.
My name's Ella.
If we're going to revisit this history a bit, let's just try and get it a little bit right.
It's noticeable that you have not interrupted Lance once, but you continue to interrupt
because
me.
Lance is much quicker.
Lance Foreman, what are the benefits of Brexit? Barry can't feel any. And where's the celebrations of this glorious 10th anniversary?
Well, as I said, I don't think Brexit has been a great success, but I don't think it's been a failure either. I characterise it as having unlocked the door but not actually left the room. We haven't really seized the opportunities that there were. To describe it as a failure is wrong. If you look at a few different sort of economic sort of criteria, our economy has grown faster than the biggest economy, Germany, since the date of the referendum. It hasn't been, we've had a poor economy, but it's still grown faster than Germany. We've been the biggest recipient of foreign direct investment of any country in Europe since the referendum. JP Morgan moved to Paris just after Brexit. They've now come back. Their employees would rather be in London. This April, they've decided to come back to London. I think to describe it as a failure is wrong. And I would like to pick up on what was described earlier as, there was a derangement. People got absolutely bonkers. And I'm going to give you a real-life example because I run a business. And so I see the effects of it in my own business. We had a customer. Great customer. They had a restaurant in Primrose Hill. I'm not going to mention the name of them. They were buying our product, smoked salmon. They were buying it on a daily basis, been doing it for years. One day they just stopped buying and I phoned the chef up and I said, is there a problem? You're not buying our smoked salmon anymore. He said, well, you need to speak to the owner. So I phoned the owner. I said, is there a problem? Is the quality not as good as it used to be? She said, well, I can't bring myself to sign a cheque to you because you supported Brexit. I said, look, that's ridiculous. You can pay by direct debit, it's fine. But she was so deranged that the quality of our products...
And we get the same. I had clients leaving my investment business for the same reason. So it actually happened. I think there was an emotional reaction on both sides that actually hasn't helped us as we move forward. And it's still there, which is one of the reasons why I think that we shouldn't. I mean, Ellen, you're laughing, but, the death threats I got were real. The people went to prison because they tried to kill me because of what I was trying to do. And the way certain papers were painting what I was wanting to do, and as you just did, is a real consequence to me and my family and my children. So it's not a joke. It's not a laughing matter when, these are serious consequences. So I think the way we debate about this is really important. And we can't keep on going back and discussing this the whole time. But, the benefits, I mean, one of the benefits I would say, actually, that isn't talked about very often, and I do think it's a benefit of Brexit, is that as a country, not many people talked about politics or weren't actually that engaged in politics compared to our EU member states and neighbours. But now there's an awful lot of people who are involved in politics and talk about politics and debating about it, and we're teaching about it in schools a lot more. That's healthier for our democracy that we've got more people involved in it.
Ella, do you agree with Lance, who takes the view that it has not been as successful as campaigners hoped it was going to be?
No, I mean, yes, I agree in terms of, if you have a vote that is thwarted and delayed for, years and years and years, not until sort of 2019 that it's actually the actual process of implementing it is done, then, I think that sort of spelled the future of what was going to be Brexit Britain under a current political establishment that has a deep hatred of it. I mean, I think that the reason why I sort of chuckled the reason why I chuckled at the sort of the comment about the emotional response, it wasn't to be nasty at all. Death threats are not funny and they're awful, and my sympathies are with you. But I think most people, when you try to characterise the response to the Brexit referendum, will agree on the Remain and Leave side that it was Leavers that got the vitriol, and not just from nutters online.
I don't think that's true.
Hang on, not just from nutters online, but from elected politicians, parliamentarians were talking about British voters in the House of Commons in a way that was absolutely disgraceful.
But now talk to Barry in Croydon, who's a British voter, who's saying, what are the benefits of breakfast? Breakfast. That's a much easier question to answer. What are the benefits of Brexit? I can't really easily identify.
No, I think it's just as easy as breakfast. It's a simple answer. We won the right to choose who governs us. We set aside an organisation that could extract tax from a nation and then write laws that we had to follow but had no say over. I mean, we now are in a position.
Can we just stop here a moment? We did have a say over them. We were involved. We had an equal say with people of other countries over them, and our parliaments did. And we also had a veto over several parts of it. So if we're going to revisit this history a bit, let's just try and get it a little bit right, because this can get irksome. And let's go back to the question. What can you actually demonstrate as a benefit that's happened? Because I think that's what Barry is asking.
Well, yeah, there are lots of things. I mean, the COVID vaccines is a huge success.
We must clear that up. That's not true. That is not true. It's been proven over and over again that actually we could have had the vaccines. The problem is we did not have the data. The EU were holding back for 2 weeks because they said that the data was not up to standard. And Boris Johnson ignored that and went ahead. It had nothing to do
with saving
millions of
lives.
God. Yes, thank God, because actually, what if the data was wrong? And then so it is not true. We did not get the vaccine first because of
some
Brexit.
Other things.
It's not true. It's a lie, Ellen.
My name's Ella.
If
we had to follow EU market rules, we wouldn't be able to nationalise things, which Andy Burnham, as a politician, might be quite interested in doing. I mean, I don't think it's controversial.
That's complete nonsense.
Say, I don't think it's controversial to say
German
that.
Railways nationalised? Hold on. You want to talk the entire time? That's fine.
I don't.
But if you don't want to talk the entire time, let us kind of come in from moment to moment.
I know, but it's noticeable that you have not interrupted Lance once, but you continue to interrupt me.
Because Lance is much quicker.
I'm making my own assumptions about what's going on there. But I think probably for me
you're having a good sneer.
The most important benefit of Brexit was, as Gina says, that people were more politically engaged, but not only that people had more political power. You now, as an average Joe and average Jane, have more political power.
And is that worth what the Bank of England estimates is a depression to the tune of 6% of Britain's output?
It's worth millions and billions of pounds. It's worth everything.
Okay.
It's worth everything.
David Aronovich, your answer to...
That's fine. The answer to and it's an honest answer, is it's worth being poorer for the putative benefits that we have of being more engaged supposedly in the political process, despite the fact the kind of political forces which Ellen now supports are continuously talking about how British people don't have any control over their own lives, as witnessed by the fact that you complain continuously about the level of immigration that happened under Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister who actually got us out of Europe. And you want to have it every which way, but essentially what you wanted to do was paint a picture of Britain that essentially needed a revolution from its kind of sleepy post-war self, etc., because it would make life more exciting for you. Well, it has become a lot more exciting for an awful lot of people, and it's also become a fair bit worse and a whole lot more divisive. Well done you.
I think there's this weird rewriting of history as if pre-Brexit everything was fine and dandy, and that you use, and post-Brexit it's a hellhole. You use the word revolution. I think that's a really good word to use for the Brexit moment, the Brexit spirit that continues, the sense that I think a lot of people have, which, let's not underestimate the fact that it was such a given that Remain was going to win. David Cameron didn't allow anyone in Whitehall to prepare, even think about preparing for a Leave vote. Everybody said, even Nigel Farage said, I think they're going to edge it.
I didn't.
And then at midnight, when the vote came in from Sunderland, and it was that 61.3%, and everybody's jaws dropped out, and I think people around the country suddenly thought,
on the road.
People suddenly thought,
no, that's not true.
Oh my God, we're going to win it.
No, because I was on the road from October 2015, from October 2015, around the country, and I was on panels with Brexiteers, leading Brexiteers, and I will name them, from Matthew Elliott to Luke Johnson to whoever they were at the time, and I kept saying in the green rooms, what's going to happen when you win? And they were saying to me, don't worry, we're not going to win. We don't have to have a plan. I was asking every single Brexiteer, what's your plans? You can't say that Cameron wasn't telling the civil service. The Brexiteers themselves didn't have a plan and didn't think that they were going to win.
It was
But I'm just saying, a lot of them didn't think that.
I think the biggest misunderstanding amongst Brexiters, I think one of the biggest misunderstandings were that many of us thought that our rules and regulations were being written by unelected bureaucrats in Brussels. And what we found once we Brexited, that they were being written by unelected bureaucrats in the UK.
Yes.
And I think that has been the biggest learning since
it's ripped
Brexit.
Everything. It's ripped all the curtains back and showed where all the...
It has.
Okay, we've got lots of other questions to get to, and we've got another half an hour to go.
Completely unable to point to any benefit.
We've got lots of other questions.
Right. Let's talk about what just happened there. The question was simple. Name a benefit of Brexit, not a feeling, not a principle, a concrete real-world benefit. And watch what the answers actually were. The first one was the vaccine. We got the COVID vaccine faster because we'd left the EU. Except we didn't. That's not opinion, it's documented. Britain could have authorised that vaccine as an EU member. The rules allowed it. We went early because Boris Johnson chose to, and the EU waited a fortnight because they wanted more safety data. So the supposed flagship benefit of Brexit isn't just weak, it's not even true. And the moment it's challenged, it's quietly dropped and never mentioned again. So what's left? Listen to what the benefits actually become once the concrete ones fall away. People are more engaged in politics now. People feel they have more political power. We won the right to choose who governs us. And look, I understand the appeal of those. But notice what they all have in common. Not one of them is a thing you can measure. Their feelings, their vibes. And when the host puts the actual number on the table, the Bank of England's estimate that the economy is around 6% smaller than it would have been, the answer comes back. It's worth it. It's worth being poorer. And that right there is the most honest moment in the entire debate. Because that's the real argument once you strip everything else away. Not that Brexit made us richer, not that it delivered some concrete prize, but that it was worth being poorer for a feeling. For the sense of having taken control, even if you can't point to a single thing that control has actually been used to do. Now I want to be fair here, because this matters. There is a real argument for sovereignty. The idea that decisions about a country should be made by people that country can vote out, that's not stupid, and it's not nothing. If someone had sat there and said, yes, we're poorer, and I'd still choose sovereignty over the money, that's at least a coherent position you can respect and argue with. But that's not what's happened for 10 years. For 10 years the promise wasn't, you'll be poorer, but freer. The promise was sunlit uplands. 350 million a week for the NHS. Easiest trade deal in history. We'd have our cake and eat it. The benefits were sold as concrete, and now, a decade later, asked to name just one, the concrete stuff evaporates, and all that's left is a feeling that we're told is worth any price. And here's the part nobody on that panel wanted to sit with. An argument that can never be measured can also never be wrong. If the benefit is just a feeling, then no figure, no recession, no lost investment, no closed business can ever disprove it. That's not a political position anymore. That's faith. And you can't argue with faith using facts, which is exactly why these debates go in circles for 10 years and never move an inch. So that's where I land. The honest people in this argument are the ones who'll say out loud, yes, we're poorer, and I'd still do it. Respect to them, genuinely. It's everyone still promising benefits they've had a decade to name and still can't. Who should give us pause? Tell me what you think in the comments. Is sovereignty worth being poorer for? It's a real question, and I'd like to know where you land. And if this made you think, share it with someone who needs to see it. That's where I am on it. See you tomorrow.